Lots of people are interested in the Deep Blue Sea. It's the most celebrated dramatic work by Rattigan.
I don't think I've ever seen or read a Rattigan play before.
This came out of the blue. I had no idea of ever doing a play.
This was a brand new play by Rattigan in the early 50s. And Rattigan had a reputation for being a great playwright, but mostly a comic playwright. And most of his pre-war plays are comedies and quite funny. Lots of people are interested in the Deep Blue Sea. It's the most celebrated dramatic work by Rattigan. And the first person I thought of was Terence Davies, whose work I'd always loved, and The Distant Voices Still Lies is one of my favourite films of all time.
This came out of the blue. I had no idea of ever doing a play because I've never done one. I've adapted novels, but not plays. And this came out of the blue. But if I can see it or I know what I think it's about, then I can see it visually.
I don't know Terence Rattigan's work, but I was really fascinated by the idea of Terence doing an adaptation of going back to the period that he knows and loves so well.
I was just finishing, I think, the first draft. And I very rarely watch television now. And I was fed up, and I thought, oh, I'll switch the television on. This girl came on with these fabulous eyes, this luminosity that absolutely knocked me out. I waited until it was finished, and it said Rachel Weisz. And I rang up my manager, I said, have you heard of someone called Rachel Weisz? He said, Terence, you're the only one who hasn't. I mean, it was sad, really, but it's the truth. I said, she's wonderful. She's got a luminosity that she'll have when she's 90. The kind of luminosity that Celia Johnson's got. I said, can we send her the script? We sent her the script, she rang me, we talked, I said, will you do it? She said yes.
Blame my conventional upbringing. You see, I was brought up to believe that in matters of this kind it was more proper for the man to do the loving.
I don't think I've ever seen or read a Rattigan play before. It's very unsophisticated of me. Obviously, I know who he is, so no, I'm not a huge Rattigan fan. I read the play when Terence offered me this film. I think it's a great play. Hester Collier is the character I play, and she's definitely, it's definitely a really complicated, interesting role, and Terence is an incredibly interesting director. So for me, it was a kind of dream combination. It was something that doesn't happen that often, where you get a really, really interesting role with a really interesting director who's very passionate about telling the story.
Come on. I read this part and I was like, I know this man. I know who he is. I know his complication. I know his charm, his ebullience, his joy, his delight, his kind of vitality, but I also know his pain, his anger. I felt like you just see it immediately. You see it in your mind, and you just take it. I mean, I called my agent immediately, and I said, I have to play this part.
Oh my God! How I hate being tangled up in other people's emotions. I've tried to avoid it all my life, and it always happens to me, always.
He read, and I just thought, we found it. Because it's very difficult to walk around a room and do things and it look absolutely natural. I said, at one point, could you just jump on the sofa? And he just did it beautifully. And you just thought, he's right, it's Freddie. I said, it's Freddie.
Do you realise what you're doing?
Yes, William. I do.
It's just a sordid little affair.
No, it's not. I love him.
This particular film is very interesting for me because I don't often get offered parts that are hurt people, and William is hurt and he's suffering. The reason why I did this job was for the emotional landscape of William, who's a very damaged man during the film.
I've always thought of sport as one of the more pointless of human activities.
That was almost offensive.
I'm sure Hester didn't mean to be impolite, Mother.
The story is Hester Collier, who has been married to William Collier, who's a judge, has met Freddie at a golf club and fallen in love with him. And she decides that she will leave Collier and her very luxurious lifestyle to live with him. For this is the first time she's found erotic love you know, and when she married William, it was for companionship and that kind of cultured marriage that may not have had much sex, or it didn't matter, but that was cultured, and I think that's what drew her to Collier, because he's a kind man.
I think she's a very bold person. She's part of the background that she's from. She's a middle-class clergyman's daughter, and she's well educated, and she's been part of society, so she's always going to have that within her, but she's broken free.
Hester's marriage is dead. It's like living in a coffin. There's nothing happening there. It's loveless. So she's sort of fighting for her life, literally. And Freddie, I think, helps her discover her own self-possession as a woman, but then he can't take her the whole way.
When I read the script, I really loved Collier. I just really thought what Terence had done with him was so sympathetic, and he clearly loves her, and he clearly wants their marriage to work, and he knows that it can't because he can't give her what she needs.
Oh, that's going to be very nice. William can't get the kind of love from Hester that he wants. She can't get it from Freddie, and that destroys it. That destroys that love. But what she does at the end, which is the real point of love, if you really love someone, she does the most courageous thing. She says, I'll let you go. If it's better for you, I'll let you go. That's real love. And it's about the nature of love, different kinds of love, true love, and the fact that she will decide to go on living. That in itself is just wonderful.
It's been interesting that in the process of the screenplay that Terence Davies has stripped away a lot of the 50s theatrics, lots of the exposition to get right to the heart of what the story's about. And that's been very interesting because it feels like a very 50s story.
Because I grew up in the 50s and I know what the texture felt like, this country was drab. We were bankrupt after the war. So you very rarely saw colour, except in musicals. So it was finding what was true to that period.
Would you come home with me, please?
No, I will not. You'll start talking and pleading.
The main element of the story which I think I was most drawn to is that it seems to be about a very constricted, constrained time and a very constricted, constrained woman in a constricted and constrained world. And it's about the rebellion and the triumph of feeling over propriety.
Rattigan wrote this after Tennessee Williams wrote Streetcar, and in a way I think he owes a debt to Blanche. It's a very different thing, but it's a story about a woman who's trying to find her own life on her own. How can that be done? I mean, Blanche is trying to find a man and it doesn't work out, but it's about women trying to define themselves in the world and create a shape for themselves, and they're women who are who don't necessarily fit in.
I just hope that the people who really know the play feel that I've done it with the best of intentions, and the people who go and see the film, I hope they're moved by it and entertained, but again, in the widest possible sense of the word.